Welcome to another episode of the Not Scrum Dumb podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about three things that people get wrong with user stories. I'm professional Scrum trainer Andriana Marshall, and that is the amazing professional Scrum trainer.
Grand Scrum Master Scott. I was just thinking as you was talking that there might be somebody out there in the audience don't know what in the world a user story is. What are y'all talking about? So let's take a step back and define what a user story is and why in the world would you want to use this tool or technique. If we go to the Scrum Guide, the product owner is responsible for managing the product backlog. So this could be a product backlog management technique or tool that you might want to introduce to your product owner. Say they're struggling. If you see your product owner basically writing a product backlog or writing a book, developers ain't going to read all that stuff. No. So you as a Scrum Master, what you would do, hey, I've used user stories before. User stories is a format that you can write something that's short, sweet, and concise. A product backlog item, first of all, is nothing but or should be a placeholder for a conversation for the team. So with that in mind, let's go to user stories. A user story is just, it implies who's going to be using this thing that we're building. With that in mind, who, and then, we're going to go with the technique, the strategy of that.
The first thing that we believe people get wrong is calling everything in the product backlog a user story.
So calling everything in the product backlog a user story, yeah, that's bad because not everything in the product backlog is for the user. We may have some architecture, we may have some infrastructure. If you're in IT, we may have several things that has nothing to do with the customer, him or herself, but has to be done in order for us to deliver or create the thing that we're trying to do. For example, a website. There's architecture and infrastructure there. You looking at us on this here video conferencing call, that is what the customer's paying for. You paying for some type of communication technique or two that you can see us and can hear us. But behind the scenes, you have architecture infrastructures going on to make this happen. Would you want to use a story for that? Probably not. Adriana, what are your thoughts?
And another point is our colleague at scrum.org, Jordan Job, he wrote that if you call everything a user story, then nothing is a user story. There should be a variety of work, defects. Of course, we try to eliminate those, but let's be honest, that happens in the workplace. Defects, technical tasks, architecture, product backlog items, potentially user stories. I've worked with teams, we don't have user stories at all. We do not waste our time with that. A few sentences, we have the discussion, we add description to it, but we don't do it. We don't do user stories. We've basically moved away from that. Anything else to add on this one, Scott?
No, I like that last point you said. You're right. For those of you who are new to the space, I started out with user stories, but yeah, most of my teams, as they mature, really want to turn it over to them and say, hey, what would you like to use to communicate what this item is and whatever else information we need to communicate so that we understand what the customer wants so that we can deliver that.
Second thing, which is writing user stories for everything. So the difference between the two is like you have things that aren't even user stories and you're calling it a user story when it's just a product backlog item. It's a defect, it's a technical task or something along those lines, and you're calling it that. I have seen where developers are writing user stories for architecture. As a developer, I want to do this. It just is unnecessary. We've now restricted ourselves and now we're focused on a format instead of a conversation. Do we have clarity? Do we have understanding? I've even seen product owners put, as a product owner, I want a feature flag. Let's just create a feature flag ticket and have the right name. We don't need to worry about a user story for something that simple. We tend to say what's popular, not say what's right. So that's a really important note. And then writing user stories for everything, it is completely unnecessary. It is not required in Scrum. You don't have to do it.
Yes, Adriana, I was thinking as you were saying, talking about writing user stories for everything. Here's a tip for you, Scrum Masters out there. If you look at your product backlog and you look at that and that it looks like the team is writing user stories for everything, this is an opportunity for you to put on your teaching hat and possibly coaching hat. As I'm thinking about the Scrum Guide, whereas specifically the Scrum Master serves the product owner by what? Helping them find techniques for effective product goal. We're not talking about that right now. But the other part of that sentence is and product backlog management. This would fall up on the product backlog management. So Scrum Masters, if you see that on your team, if you just join a team, and this is again, I'm just giving you something that you can look at. Okay, hey, that should cause a red flag for you to ask questions when you have that one-on-one with your product owner. Hey, it looks like we're writing user stories for everything. Do we really need that? Maybe they don't know anything different. Maybe they're just duplicating what they've always seen. So you that person to highlight that and say, try to help the team figure out a better, more efficient way to do that with all the things we've said thus far.
And then to the final point, the product owner creates all user stories. I will say that in my personal experience, I've started with this. The product owner needs to create that user story. The product owner needs to create that ticket. But you are causing a bottleneck within your team. They are going to be delayed. Learn from my mistakes. I wish I can come and say I was perfect, but during the process, I've made mistakes. That's why I'm trying to help you not make those. But I've definitely done that. And it causes a ton of bottleneck. And then you end up having a product owner that, if they like it, they're probably the micromanaging type product owner. So you also, as a scrum master, have to be looking at that because it is your job to help them. Okay. Scott, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, Andre, on a very good points there in terms of the product owner creates all of the user stories. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way because as we read in the Scrum Guide, the product owner may do the above work or they may delegate this work. So I'm thinking about the environment that I've been in where I may have a project manager on the team. Typically, the project manager will be assisting the product owner in the Scrum framework. We're talking about the Scrum accountability. Or you could be in an environment where you have business analysts. I've seen business analysts also support and help the product owner because it's just those out there just want to make sure we're communicating the right things to you. Scrum Guide says yes, the product owner can do it, yes, but they also can delegate this here too. And it can be any member on the Scrum team. It can be a developer. It could be us as Scrum Masters. Product owner does have flexibility there. That they are not the ones that only have to do this and write this product backlog item and put it in the product backlog. Adriana, your thoughts?
Yeah, agree with all those points. We want our product owner studying what's going on in the environment, working with stakeholders. We cannot restrict them to just being a scribe. And that's really important. Like, they have a big accountability. And so we shouldn't get caught up in, I can't create a product backlog item. I'm going to stand on this. Please don't stand on that. Let's collaborate. Let's work together as a Scrum team. Let's make each other better and let's help each other out. Hopefully you gained some valuable insights into some of these misconceptions and your team can improve based on this. If you stay to the end of this video, that means you have an attention span greater than a goldfish. Have a great one, everyone.
Be legendary, everyone. Have a good day.